and welcome to the Township of North Compass Committee of the Whole meeting for October 2nd. Members of the public are able to attend the Township office in person to speak to any report on the agenda or register with the Police Division in advance to attend. Members of the public who have registered to attend electronically have been provided with the Zoom link to join the meeting this evening and have indicated to staff which item they would like to participate in. Those who are present in person will be able to speak to any staff report on the agenda when it is reached and will be asked to approach the podium to speak. Please note that all speakers are provided with no more than 5 minutes to address the staff report. The clerk will time each speaker and advise the chair when the 5-minute time is up. Members of the public were also able to submit written comments to the Police Division that have been provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd now like to call the meeting to order. Can I have approval of the agenda, please?
Moved by myself, second by Council Roman, the council adopt the October 2nd, 2023 committee of the whole agenda as presented with the following amendments. Number 1, add item 7.1 report number BD 47 2023 deeming bylaw for lot 4 and lot 5 within registered plan number 1452 for 117 to 119 Earl Thompson Road. Number 2, add item 7.2 report number BD 48 2023 discussion item housing affordability task force recommendations. Add item 8.3 report number REC 17 2023 discussion paper levels of service to park access and off-road trail maintenance for seasons. Number 4, add new item 10 adoption resolutions and remember the remainder of the agenda accordingly. Number 5, add item 11.2 bylaw number 3437-23 being a bylaw to designate a part of the plan of subdivision not being a registered plan of subdivision for the purpose of subsection 53 for the public planning act.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. I'd now like to do the Indigenous acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Ute people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. And as we reflected in it, I have the privilege to say I got to go to Woodland Cultural Center. I saw the Indigenous Museum, and I also went through the residential school. It's very interesting, but they had 3 schools at the center, and 2 of them were burned down by the children. And the last one, the beginning was opened in, I believe, 1909, and they have got all the residential children tried to burn it down as well, and they were able to save it. It's being remodeled. We got in to see it, even though it was not completely done, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. The first to be opened with information from computers at the museum. And all of the to the reconciliation and the act and what's happening. And really interesting things like Joseph Grant was always seen as an Indigenous hero by the Indigenous, but not anymore because he did sell the out in front. And so they were not having this. It was just very, very interesting. And how these atrocities ever happen. And yet they do, and they still need to be in other parts of the world. So that's cause of that, let's reflect on the horrors we do to one another. When will we ever learn to stop? Thank you. Is there any exposure to community interest or general to bear? Seeing none. We will adjourn and the meeting is committee of the whole. Please come to us.
Moved by myself, second by Council Roman, the council adjourned to sit as committee of the whole.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Under the financial report, is any member of council wish to pull any of the items? Seeing none, then can I have the resolution, please, Council Watson?
Moved by myself, second by Council Rowland, that the committee of the whole recommend the following item be approved as presented as outlined in staff reports listed in the finance function area. 6.1 report number FIN 2023. Creation of a new discretionary reserve fund. That FIN report number 20-2023 be received, and that staff be authorized to create a new reserve fund for the purpose of constructing the pump track. And that all donations received by the township in regards to the pump track be transferred to a newly established pump track reserve fund. And that staff be authorized to create a new reserve fund for the purpose of constructing the twin pad at the North Dumfries Community Complex, or to support minor sports programs if the twin pad project does not proceed forward. And that staff be directed to transfer all donations received by the township in memory of Donald Becker to the newly established NDCC twin pad / minor sport program reserve fund.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And next is item number 7, relevant to services functions. Anyone wish to call in? Council Rose. 7.2. 7.2. And others? Seven point two is the lot 4 and lot 5 within the registered plan 1452 for 117-119 Earl Thompson Road. And the second one is the housing task force.
Did we get an addendum to 7.2?
Yeah, for both. So we'll discuss it first, then we can pass both of them at once if we wish, or we can forward.
Yeah, I got the same, sorry, I got the same addendum.
Okay, so that's Council Rose first.
So I had just one question, I think, to staff, which is verification. So one of the recommendations, was for, number 20, which is the funded creation of approval facilitators. But when I looked down at that one, it had an ampersand beside it, which according to the notes indicated that recommendations with asterisks have been implemented already. So I was wondering if we wanted to recommend something that has already been implemented, or if we wanted to go for something else. So that's my first question.
So, Madam Mayor, through you, Councilor Williams, September 15th correspondence from the minister. Did identify that 23 of the 72 recommendations have been implemented, and they are noted in the asterisks. The minister in his letter provided flexibility in council comment on 8 of 72 recommendations. And so if council adopts task force recommendation number 20 of the village facilitators, then you are basically endorsing that action for 4 or 5 province and for one state.
So I guess my question is, do we want to do that, or do we want to endorse something that hasn't been implemented yet? Offset we would get.
I think that would probably be redundant. I'm not sure how other councils feel. Any other comments on this? Councilor Austin?
We should be kind of keeping in line with the rest of the problem, like what everybody else is doing. Because if we're trying, one of the recommendations is to province wide definition of affordable housing, stuff like that. We would be part of a larger group of information and legislation. I mean, rather than our own thing. I'm not quite exactly sure what we wanted to do different.
So my thought was we have an opportunity to make 5 recommendations. So if something has already been implemented, do we really want to recommend it, if it's already been implemented, or do we want to recommend something that is perhaps it hasn't been implemented yet in the hopes that it would get implemented sooner? That's basically what my thought process is.
Do you have any idea of some of the things you would like to see?
So some of the things that, and this was just me going through and probably not, and, I feel almost, like I shouldn't be making a lot of recommendations, but one of the things that caught my eye was around, things like, where is it? 42, for around affordable ownership market projects. Things like that.
Do you want to defer this and have a chance to relook at it for our next council meeting? And is there a time frame that we can do that? See,
Madam Mayor, in the correspondence from the minister, he asked for comments from the head council by the 16th of October. Your next council meeting is the 23rd of October.
so we can still make these comments and have them notarized, correct? Or not notarized, but put within our response, correct? See on the board?
Madam Mayor, there's no special council meeting called between now and 16th of October, so council wishes a resolution adopting one or more recommendations. Then it will be at tonight's meeting, otherwise you'll be submitting after the October 16th time.
That's what I'm saying. If Council Rose wants to put this on for today, Council Austin.
So just to build on my earlier question, which was kind of everywhere, but where did staff come up with these recommendations? Are these recommendations that the region and other municipalities, is everybody trying to go on the same road and direction with this? Is this where these recommendations came from?
See on the board.
Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Austin. Given the short time period in which this was presented by the minister, came out by correspondence on the 15th of September, and wanting comments by the 16th of October. No, there hasn't been any area-wide discussions. The minister in his cover letter did indicate that a significant number of the recommendations before by the Affordable Task Force wouldn't necessarily apply to small, rural, and northern municipalities. Some of these, inclusionary zoning, are specifically targeted at larger urban centers. And there's 4 or 5 recommendations that speak exclusively to inclusionary zoning. So there is an acknowledgement that there will not be a consistency across municipalities in Ontario. What we did was we looked at the 72 recommendations as put forward by the Affordability Task Force, in February of 2022, put it through the lens of Fort Dumfries, and specifically gaps or issues that we've been witnessing that were captured by the Affordability Task Force and brought those forward for township council's consideration.
Council Austin.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of definition and words in there in such a short discussion, in a short time frame given to us. Like, what are these approval facilitators going to do? Like, how is this? Like, when we look at this, is working towards affordable housing. Is it affordable housing or just housing accountability?
Madam Mayor, through you, Councilor Austin. Affordability Task Force was championed to identify areas where improvements could be made in current land use review and decision-making processes, as to how to streamline the process and shorten time periods to bring 1.5 million homes to the marketplace by 2031. So in background papers, it talks about housing that's attainable, generally speaking. That is looking at purpose-built ownership type housing that is lower than its present cost center. The other is affordable housing and purpose-built rental. So the 72 recommendations look at the broader spectrum of housing accommodation. Some are specifically targeted toward purpose-built rental, others are targeted more toward attainable ownership of housing.
So B-2 is one of the recommendations is that develop and legislate a clear province-wide definition of affordable housing to create certainty and predictability.
Well, Madam Mayor, through Councilor Austin, yes, that's one of the ones that staff have identified. This is critical because under Bill 23, affordable housing, not yet defined, is eligible for either a reduction or actual write down of the entire development charges paid out. Unless you actually have a definition that's clearly understood, consistent, and I'll use the word defensible, how does one apply that in the context of providing either a refund and or a reduction in the eligible development charges paid? And this is one of the gaps that exists with Bill 23 as presently defined.
And if I may give an example, so, a developer went to a municipality in one region and said, I'm going to go to affordable housing and everything else. And, we retained on that. So we did. 6 months later, we took them into condominiums. So because the municipality didn't document that they said that. And I explained to the mayor of that municipality afterwards was, if she had just stated on the document that when the region goes into affordable housing, they say you have to maintain it for 25 years, for 35 years, you can't lift it. So that's right in the contract. This municipality didn't, and the gentleman, and then to the promise. So that's why it's essential that we define it and that we make sure there's a contract with that. Councilor Austin.
It's all fine, like, I mean, if you have developers that really genuinely care and they want to do affordable housing and put up housing for rental, maybe not for sale, but affordable, semis, etc. Well, they're carrying those mortgages, and with all good intentions, if you had all the good intentions 3-4 years ago at 2%, your good intentions are out the window right now because interest rates are 6 to 6.5. So how can a builder say, or how can the province say you can't sell it, yet their costs are going to go up so much and they can't pass it on to the tenants? It's the builder landlord that is in trouble financially.
That's in rental units, but if it's a sold house, then it's
It's not.
yeah, but
That was couples, right?
but I think we're straying here. Let's look at each individual one and see what we think after it comes to going rates.
I mean, I'm just curious, if we end exclusionary zoning, does that allow us to access fund bill the province or through this other funding with that?
Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Rowland. We are actually not allowed to anticipate or create inclusionary zoning provisions because the Planning Act, as amended by this government, only allows inclusionary zoning, what flows from it, next to major transportation or major transit terminals. And we don't have those in North Dumfries. Township Council, in 2 separate briefing papers with the former Minister of Municipal Affairs, had actually asked that rural municipalities be given the ability to look at inclusionary zoning and to set that context in their respective official plans. So, document that's prepared by the task force talks about those areas that currently enjoy inclusionary zoning provisions. That's why I said those 5 or 6 recommendations don't apply to North Dumfries, nor could they in the current policy regime.
So let me make councils, let's look at the one of those. Okay, so the first one is that council adopt the 5 following housing accommodating task force recommendations and submit them to the national task force meeting. permit as right, secondary suites, garden suites, and mainland houses. So we already have that. Correct, CO Kelly?
So Madam Mayor, yes, and in part. So the province did enact this as one of their implementation tools, but they only did it within urban areas. So in the context of North Dumfries, that would be exclusively within the community of air, because it's the only full service community, which meets the definition of urban area. Township Council, going back to 2018, actually allows the consideration of secondary suites and garden suites in both the rural countryside, rural settlements, and within urban areas.
So to protect that, we need that at the state and
What has been suggested in the staff report is this action item put forward by the Housing and Accountability Task Force makes sense, and it reflective of what's appropriate in scale and context for North Dumfries.
thank you. So the next one, any problems with that one? Ladies and gentlemen, keep it okay. Next one, fund the creation of approval facilitators with the authority to quickly resolve conflicts among municipal and or provincial authorities to ensure timelines are met. Councilor Rose.
So that's the one that has already been implemented, which goes back to my question.
CO Kelly.
So, Madam Mayor, this is a widely available tool that because it hasn't been properly ramped up in terms of staffing at the provincial level. Okay, but the mechanism to allow for approval facilities has been established in legislation, and there are a limited number of facilitators available. This measure, if properly fully implemented, would, in my opinion, provide a meaningful alternative to the Ontario Land Tribunal, which in the context of both time to get in front of the body to assess there, but also the cost to get there would be significantly lower. And this is an effective means to basically work as mediation to bring forward differences, resolve conflicts, and move valuable housing projects forward in a more effective and timely fashion. So while implemented, it's not widely enforced to the president of the province.
So we'll give it that one. See, my question is, is can we add additionals?
So the letter from the minister was looking at the 72 action items as set out by the Housing Affordability Task Force in their February 2022 release. The council wishes to look at other gaps that would allow for streamlining or more effective review and or decision making. I have lots of suggestions, but that's not what the minister asked for. We were given their list and asked to comment on 5 items coming from that list.
Okay, so, and we do with the facilitator, okay? Simplify planning legislation and policy documents, which is a no-brainer, right? So, okay. Provide funding to increasing staff, adjudicators, and case managers. Provide the market competitive salaries, outsource more matters to mediators, and what about that statement? So this is asking them to fund it, right? Council Mills.
Right, so this, yeah, so this one has not been implemented. So how does, my question is, how does this overlap with 20 or almost say the same thing? Because it almost seems to be saying the same thing. So more fun.
So, Madam Mayor, this goes back to my earlier statement. While they've implemented it in terms of creating a framework to allow for these approval facilitators, they haven't properly resourced their staff. And therefore, while it's there, it's not there in meaningful numbers to really make a dent in terms of moving the backlog of the files, but they could be dealt with. And so 20 and 30 are linked. And it's good. It's ensuring a consistent storyline. It's great to create the framework, but then you gotta fund it to bring it to the wall.
And my fear with this is that if we don't do it, they will download it and have us. Okay. And the last one is, of course, which is develop and legislate a clear, provincial-wide definition of affordable housing to create certainty and predictability. Which is, I think, a no-brainer. We always go by about 30%, right? 30% income.
So Madam Mayor, in Waterloo region, we use the CNHC index to try and define affordability both in terms of purpose-built rental as well as freehold ownership. And generally speaking, it is 30%. So that's 30% below the average, the price of rent within the Centus metropolitan area. So in our case, the Centus metropolitan area is Cambridge, Kitchener, and that's the benchmark that we have been using. That's not necessarily a consistent definition that is used across.
Are we okay, everyone? Council Tilly, you can read this, and since I read all two, if you want to just read 7.1.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williams, the committee will recommend the following items be approved as presented and the outlined in the staff report is listed below, services function area. 7.1 report number PD 47/2023 deemed by law lot 4 and 5 within the registered plan number 1452 for 117 to 119 Earl Thompson Road. The council received PD report number 47/23 to that bylaw number 44 37 the bylaw deemed that lot 4 and 5 within the registered plan 1452 117 to 119 Earl Thompson Road are hereby deemed not to be or being land within the registered plan of subdivision for purposes of subsection 53 of the plan act being enacted. 7.2. It's aforementioned.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next, we have community services function area. Is there any item you want us to further discuss? Council Williams.
I'd like to discuss 8.1 and 8.
Okay, any other? Go ahead, Council Williams.
Okay, so just with regards to 8.1, we're excited to see this one on our agenda because I know it's a huge shortage across the countries. So it's awesome. Here, see that. I was wondering, I really had two questions for so there's a strictly for summer camps. Is there any indication as well of more opportunities for PD days or March break activities as well?
Go ahead, Kim.
Through you, Mayor Foxy and Council Wells. I know that the camp director is on the call, but at this time, she's just trying to get the rolling with the summer program. She might be able to do something more after that, but the focus is right on 2024 supplement.
Thank you. I thought it would be a bit of a stretch, but I figured I'd ask.
Annie, did you want to make any comment? Annie, did you want to make a comment? You're on mute, Tim.
Unmute, sorry. I guess just as Karen said, we're open to those possibilities in the future, but for now we'll just start with the summer camp and then we'll kind of see where things go from there.
Thank you.
And my second question is whether or not there would be early registration options specifically for North Beach residents. So that we can make sure that the folks in this area get an opportunity to register earlier than perhaps people from other townships, other cities.
Yeah. Annie?
Yeah,
I can.
Go ahead, Annie.
Sure. So we did do an early registration option this past summer for the Tavistock families. It's easier said than done because links go live and I can't really control the platform that we use. I can't control sort of who gets first access. So if somebody shares the link with a a family from another city, it's hard for me to police that. But yes, we did try that with Tavistock families, and it worked quite well. I think we just gave them a day or two ahead of time. So we're happy to do a similar process with North Dumfries families.
Thank you. And that's all the questions. Thank you. So the next one is the discussion paper 8.3 around levels of service for park access and off-road maintenance. I was just looking through the recommendations. Let me share, bring that up. And I was kind of hoping that we'd be able to do both 2 and 4 for options. What is, have to staff further define, refine which trails to use this, and then also add this as a discussion item for our budget.
And that's CEO McNally for Christine.
So, Mayor, if I understand correctly, going down to section 3.3, so I guess it's page 24 on the addendum package. We outlined 4 potential recommendations the council may entertain as the consideration of this report. And option 2 was read, direct staff to further define and refine the parks, trails, and path standards, identify the park priorities, and establish which parks and trails would be maintained. So if I understand correctly, Councilor Williams, as part of the future report, wants not only debated as part of the 2024 budget, but also more information which parks would notionally be included in that enhanced level of service. So staff did try to identify that if we went to a 4 seasons maintenance level, it would only be those trails where it falls under the active transportation definition. And on the table page, and on the page 22 and 23 of the addendum package, we had a table that split over the 2 tables and listed all of the parks that they exist today where trails are present. And we tried to categorize between leisure trail, LT, an active transportation trail, AT. And so anything that would have an AT component to it, we would cost out as part of that budget discussion paper. And council as part of the deliberation of 2024 budget, looking at that 24-25 winter season, so starting in the fall of 24. If council moves forward with one or more of those parts, then it would be a new cost center added to the base budget for the trails.
Any further questions? Councilor Austin.
My concern would be liability. Like what would happen with our insurance if we were to open more of those parks? Would we have an insurer readjustment in costs and for liability insurance, etc.?
So, Madam Mayor, through the council officer, the reality is our parks, because we actually own the asset, we're always at risk of liability and therefore exposure. Where we have trails and we do not provide winter maintenance, which is the vast majority of our current network, we have signs that was approved by the insurance cooperative in terms of language. Cold note is that basically says close, use at your own risk, and there's no trail maintenance. But the reality is there's always a risk that someone, if they hurt themselves on a trail, whether we maintain it or not. The question becomes a matter of degree, and do we take reasonable steps and measures to protect or inform an individual? If we were to maintain certain trails, we've identified notionally a goal that falls in the active transportation definition. Then they would be maintained at a level reflective of what we do with the sidewalk system. In other words, they would be plowed, each, winter event, and where appropriate or necessary, there would be product put down for, icy or, events or where we have a free stop site.
So, option number 2 would come back to, sorry, and, we can read it.
So, Madam Mayor, the recommendations in the staff report is that council make no decisions tonight. This is effectively an information report that provides, I hope, some context as to what is our current inventory. What do we currently offer in terms of trail maintenance? It's very limited. We've tried to identify what the order of magnitude costs would be on a per hour basis if you were to migrate into Four Seasons maintenance, the trail length in each of the reference parks. And then we tried to segregate parks generally from those that might form part of an active transportation system. So we tried to tier or structure them. We would return this recommendation is presented by staff is adopted. We would return as part of the budget deliberation, and there would be a discussion paper. And it would be called change of level of service for trail systems. And we would drill down further on active trails. We will give you what that order of magnitude cost is. And then council as part of the 2024 budget deliberation could determine whether or not you want to change our level of service and broaden the scope of where Four Seasons maintenance is provided to one or more park locations.
So what this does is gives Dan permission to gather the information. That's all this does. Allows us to create a document with the information and cost.
So I guess the question that's been raised in the past by residents is about Talon Park. So we've got a lot of access. Can we access Talon Park in winter time? They want to walk there, they want to use it for this equipment. The snow isn't always that bad, so there's lots of times when people feel the park should be open, open closed because of the skate park. They want to use the skate park. I guess one thing I'm gonna have to ask staff is there any consideration of Talon Park being open? The other one I know we're gonna ask me about is the new trail going through Schmidt Park. That trail is open, people want to use it, and does it change from being a leisure trail to more of an active transportation trail because it connects to the place of the fire hall? I'm wondering, should we consider that as well? And I'm also wondering about the new trail down by the stormwater management pond on the corner of Swan and Breakwater Road. Is that part of our sidewalk network, or is that an independent trail as well?
So, Madam Mayor, the issue with Talon Park and the trail is goes beyond just the fact that we're concerned about the drifting conditions in the skate park, which is going in there with a facility, even though there may not be a lot of snow on the ground, there'll be snow in that feature just because of the angles of the planes associated with some of the risers, as well as the bowl itself. And so when we opened up the facility back in 2021, I think it was, we decided we would have it closed for the winter season because of the potential drifting and inconsistent variables associated with safety of using it as a skateboard facility. But it goes beyond that. The concern about Talon Park is the irrigated soccer pitches, and they are very sensitive turf. People on them in the winter season, actually doing damage to the turf itself. The other is the trail itself. Trail is a limestone screening. It holds moisture and it cannot be plowed. And if we put product on it to try and melt snow or melt ice, we'll actually even further degrade the integrity of the limestone screening. Final thing is, there are some changes in grade on portions of that trail system. It's not flat. And the concern is you can have pockets of ice on those ice slopes, and are we creating a dangerous thing? If the surface is paved, and so they then want to look at that. But there are other factors, once you open the gate, you open up the car.
Councillor Ross.
So that's the counterpart. The other concern, in respect to Schmidt Park is, we want to take a look at how well this, organic rock material holds up through the winter season. We have no history with this. And our concern is that product potentially is designed to absorb and infiltrate rainfall as well as snow melt. It's a permeable surface. So the question will be, if we plow it or we put product on it because it traps ice, are we going to actually harm the surface? And so we have no history with it. Part of our learning curve was to see what the winter, spring of 2024 does to that surface, how does it adapt? As it relates to the existing asphalt trail that surrounds a portion of the stormwater management facility at the intersection of Leslie Davis, Swan, Grant Waterloo Road. We look at that as more as a leisure trail rather than an active trail. And so in our scoring, we did not list it as a Four Seasons maintenance trail. Conversely, the trail corridor, which is yet to be built, the lands are starting to be acquired, being that greenway that makes effectively Dr. George Court Crescent, right through to the current Vincent Drive stormwater management facility. That we do see as a active transportation trail, and as it's built over time, it will be several years as it's built. That would be one of the candidate trails for Four Seasons maintenance, including plowing and where appropriate product being applied. It is an asphalt surface.
Councillor Ross.
Just one quick comment. I would be concerned at Cowan Park, leaving barriers open during the winter. I'd be worried about snowmobile squads and dirt bikes. And it happens, it's happened before. And I would be afraid that they come in there with quads, like right over top of the skate park, and there's a lawsuit waiting to happen. That's just one concern. There's ways to alleviate. So just getting back to this though, so these recommendations for council, this council considerations report has 4 options available. Those options are coming back to us. These are options that are coming into the future report coming from staff.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Ofsted, it will be a discussion paper that will be presented as part of the 2024 budget deliberation. It's not something that we had accounted for when we came to council in August of 2023 with the drivers and called the guardrails. And what a maximum like. Costing for Four Seasons maintenance of one or more of these trails was not included when we did our workup on the draft operating budget. And so council would need to look at a change of service level and how quickly do you want to roll that in if you wish to adopt it. So we have a discussion paper, we'll talk about the active trails, what the order of magnitude cost would be. Not all of those active transportation trails would be ready for the 2024 season. Some will be occurring in 25 and 26, but we wanted to give council sort of a lay of the land. Here are some trails that are either been approved or are in some phase of construction, so that you have an idea of what the order of magnitude could look like if we were to move forward in that direction.
So as part of this, so will there be a public consultation as well, or just a staff and council discussion?
Budget is covered.
What I'm saying is, before this report comes in, will there be a public consultation prior to this coming back to council? Is that part of the process?
So, Madam Mayor, this would be part of the December release of the draft budget. It would be one of the discussion papers. If council wishes, a formal consultation process in advance of the release of the draft budget in December. In advance of those January meetings, that could be undertaken. Certain, all of your budget meetings are open to the public, and any individual who speak to any element of the draft budget at the January budgetary meetings or email through the clerk, which would form part of future submissions on correspondence to members of council as part of those 24 budget deliberations.
Now, I would like to say that I'm not sure I want to do it separately, because if you do it and you open it up and then you find that the budget, you can't provide any of it because of cost and the nature of society today. And with the increase in interest rates on the horizon. CEO McNeil and I were talking to people whose 5-year mortgages come. Yeah, if they have $100,000 mortgage, their monthly bill is going to go up $125. So imagine a $700,000 mortgage. This is on top of their existing mortgage. So we have to really be careful with our taxpayers' money. Very careful. So if we open this meeting and say, oh yeah, look at all these trails we can do, and people ask for, or they say, yeah, go for it. And then we get down to the nuts and bolts if we can't afford it. I don't want to give them false hope. They can come and they can speak at the meeting, but they have to, we all have to look at the big picture. We love to give our residents everything, but it's gotta be reasonable in this. Council Austin.
Well, that's fine and dandy, but I don't think that we should be making that decision without any public consultation or input. I mean, you're asking the people, the very people who are struggling with the mortgages, they might say, no, we don't want that. I'd like to hear from, well, and through the natural process, we probably will get emails anyway. But I'd just like to know how people feel about it, because you're right, it's going to cost a lot of money to keep these parks open. And I'm worried, as we mentioned several times in the previous years, I'm worried about liability. I think there's a greater liability if you maintain an area versus leave it closed with enter at your own risk. I think you're opening yourself up to a greater liability on certain trails, especially if they're a little bit more open.
Do you want this as a separate vote? Councilor Ross.
Right, so I think, it sounds like we do want to have a look at it with the numbers. So option 4, it definitely will be what we're looking at. I don't know if we also want more information from staff before the budgetary meeting, or we're fine with just the report during the budget.
We want separate motions for all of the items of number 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3, or do we want to do the motion in its entirety? That's what I'm asking now. Do you want this to be separate, or do you want to do that? Councilor Teddy.
See how this for information purposes only, it's gonna come back to us at some point. Obviously, that is it sufficient to wait for the information to come back and to process it, or I understood what you said. Wondering if that could come back for it. So,
Councilor Ross.
I would like to see a staff report come back on what the cost is gonna be. I think we should have that before our budget deliberations, because we're gonna have a lot to deliberate on budget. And it'd be nice to have that information ahead of time, so that we know going into December's budget meeting, how that's gonna affect the budget. I still want to get there on a big budget meeting and say, okay, now this is going to go up so much, this is gonna cost again. What do you want to cut out? What do you want to add? You want to do anything at all? Like, I don't like that. I like to have things done ahead of time so that we know how it's going to affect the budget. It might not even be a discussion by the time it comes around when you look at what the costs is going to be.
So may I make a recommendation that the amendment being, the motion be amended? Instead of saying, and that is part of the 2024 budget discussion. We just say that if we receive it, if council assessed and determined to determine whether to change the level of service of social funds, etc. Prior to budget coming out of theirs. So we were asking for the report before we get into budget. Council Austin.
Or could we not amend option number 2 where it says direct staff to further define and redefine park trail status and path standard that identifies park priorities and establish which parks and trails will be maintained and at what cost for a meeting in November?
Okay, I have 8.2 as the Air 200 million, there's 8.3 is,
So maybe he's looking at option 2 on page 24.
so I'm going by the whole year. That's what I'm going by the whole sheet.
Page,
Right, and this option. So if you go to page 24, option 2 is the.
Okay, so, the clerk has suggested that we cross out at 8.3 and vote on 8.1 and 8.2, and then we'll come back to 8.3. Okay? So, Councilor Bowman, you have the motions, and since we haven't talked about 8.1 and 8.2, I'm gonna ask you to remove this. No, 8.12 on the main sheet, and then 8.3 on the second.
stuff about utility, painful, recommendable, and be approved as presented. As outlined in staff reports of the committee services function area 8.1. Report number rec 18-2023, proposed adjusted rate structure camp. All I wanted to do camp, 2024, summer camp experience that report number 18-2023 be received. Then camp, all I want to do is support and delivery of the 2024 summer camp program be levied for weekly fee of $673.35 plus HST for each full week, 5 days of the program, and $434.67 plus HST for 4-day week camps for the big utilized by the third party in the American Community Center. And a staff be directed to prepare the appropriate fee structure and inclusion of time 2024 fees which are by law to implement this action. And we two report number rec 19-2023, Air 200 New Year's Eve event. Council received report number 19-2023, and council grant permission to Air 200 to organize and implement the 2023 New Year's Eve event at the Air Community Center. And that bylaw 3428-23 being a bylaw to temporarily close portion of Church Street from Piper Street to William Street on Sunday, December 31st, 2023, between the hours of 12 noon, 8 p.m. and close Stanley Street and Montgomery Street to Piper Street and Piper Street from Stanley Street to Walter Street between the hours of 6:15 and 7:30 p.m. to accommodate the Air 200 Years event being enacted. And that bylaw number 3415-23 being a bylaw to establish temporary no parking restrictions for Piper Street both sides from Montgomery Street to Rose Street, William Street west side from Church Street to Water Street, Church Street north side from William Street to Walter Street, John Street west side from Church Street to Water Street, north side from John Street, William Street, Walter Street, east side from Church Street to Piper Street on Sunday, December 31st, 2023, between the hours of 1 p.m. 7:30 p.m. be enacted, and that council grant exemption from fire bylaw number 3325-22 to allow for the display of fireworks at 29 Piper Street on Sunday, December 31st, 2023, by the Air 200 Committee as a community event, provided that the display includes by no later than 7 p.m. And that bylaw 3430-23 being a bylaw to grant exemption to the noise bylaw number 2609-14. Outdoor amplified music and or event noises to be permitted as follows for the properties located within 150 meters of the Air Community Center 7 Church Street for Sunday, December 31st, 2023 from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. subject to the following. The operators of the Air 200 music event shall notify all resident property owners located within 150 meters of the area of the event as to the hours of operation, including the hours of amplified event noise and the music by no later than Monday, December 4th, 2023.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. Now we have 8.3. Councilors, how do you want this to be? As a motion reads right now, we have that met 17/2023 BBC report. And that as part of the 2024 budget discussions, council assessed and determined whether to change the level of service and the associated budget impact for the provision of Four Seasons Trail maintenance for park access off road trails. That's what the motion states. Council Rowland.
I understand the council officer correctly. I think what he's asking for is that we have additional staff report that outlines some of the additional costs before budget. So when do we expect to report back?
Well, first thing we have to then scrap is the third part of, number 2 on here. And that is part of the 2024 budget discussion. So we just say, or we can say prior to. Yes, prior to. Prior to the 2024 budget set, council assess and determine budget, staff, okay, then we'll get in there. You want to retype this prior to the 2024 budget discussions. At the November council group. At the council assess and determine whether to change the levels of service associated with budget impact for the provision of courses. So the staff, the November council meeting, the staff will do a report, and then council will assess and determine whether to go. Well, no, we're not going to decide on the level of increasing. Council Rose.
I'm wondering if we should almost do more like direct staff to determine the report to define or refine the park trails in the one on the lines of option 2 there.
Staff, thanks. Okay, prior to the 2024 budget discussions, at the November council meeting, staff returned with full report.
May I suggest a further report? So all we're going to do is build on this. Because this already identifies active, natural, and leisure trails.
A further report.
So we would focus our initial cut in terms of order of magnitude costs on those active trails. And we would show them over the 24-25, 25-26, and 26-27. See the 3-year snapshot, what those costs would look like. And we'll let it over the next 3 years. The second grouping, staff is not recommending leisure trails surface. So we'd actually tell you what the capital cost would be to make them into a hard surface. And then the operating cost to add them into the inventory. And the other thing is, I believe Councilor Austin raised this, one to understand what the liability of risk. If we just keep it status quo, in other words, the park is open, but we use the trails to control risk versus us formally going in and treating portions of the trails like a visible sidewalk. Does that increase or reduce our liability? So we'll get an opinion from insurance cooperative. It should also be built into that follow-up report.
Okay, so instead of putting all that in, staff returned with a further report evaluating the trail system, cost factors, and liability.
And we bring that to you in November.
And then I'm doing prior to the 2024 budget. At the November council meeting, staff returned further report evaluating the trail system cost and liability. report evaluating the trail system, costs and liability. Prior to the 2024 budget discussion. Discussion. Before budget. At the November 2024 council meeting, staff determined a further report evaluating the trail system costs and liability. See, Council Rowland.
One thing I'd like to add to that report as well is just to be a priority list of the active trails. Because if we say, you know, like there's just,
You have to put that in, because when we evaluate, maybe a big priority.
So Madam Mayor, just the timeline to build out of some of those legal trails is going to be over the next 2 or 3 years. It's not all in place for the 24-25 season. So might haven't necessarily opened up yet. So by default, that does triage the rollout of your active trails if you were to adopt that as your standard over the next 3 years. That's why I want to break it out over 3 years.
So that's what we evaluate. Can you take that, please? That's not the only thing. Please.
By Councilor Ross, we have that report 17-2023 received prior to 2024 budget at November 2024 council meeting. Staff returned the further report evaluating trail systems costs and liability.
All those in favor? Hearing, thank you. Now we're at government services. Is there any item anyone would like to fully discuss? Okay, seeing no one, can I have the motion, please? Councilor Rose.
moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Tilly, that the committee of the whole recommend the following items be approved as presented. As outlined in the staff reports listed for the governance protective services function area. 9.1 report number 10-21-2023 to the 2023 December municipal office holiday schedule. That FIN report number 21-2023 be received, and that council authorize the township municipal offices be closed from Friday, December 22nd, 2023 at 4:30 p.m. to Tuesday, January 2, 2024 at 8:30 a.m. And that staff be directed to advertise the holiday office closure on the township's website and social media accounts, community newsletter, e-loss, and advertise in the local newsletter. 9.2 report number CLK-17-2023, council meeting scheduled for 2024. The CLK report number 17-2023 be received, and the council adopt the 2024 meeting schedule, and that staff published the adopted 2024 meeting dates on the township's website, social media accounts as part of the ongoing public consultation and community outreach program. 9.3 report number FD-12-2023. Fire Department Incident Response Summary, September 2023. The FD Report 11-2023 received for the purposes of information.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Can I have the motion, please, to come out of the committee of the whole and return to council?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Rowland, the committee of the whole is hereby adjourned and the council meeting will be called back to order.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. I have the motion for Councilor Rowland for 10.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Rowland, that council adopt the recommendation as adopted and presented by committee of the whole dated October 2nd, 2023, report number PD 47 twenty twenty-three, deeming bylaw, lot 4 and lot 5 within registered plan number 1452 for 117, 119 Earl Thompson Road. First, that council will receive BD report number 47 twenty twenty-three, and second, that bylaw number 3437 23 being a bylaw to deem that lots 4 and 5 within registered plan 1452, 117 to 119 Earl Thompson Road are hereby deemed not to be or to be lands within a registered plan of subdivision for the purposes of subsection 53, section 3 of the Planning Act be enacted.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Number 11, please, Councilwoman.
And myself and my council officer that the following bylaw be taken and read the first and second time. Bylaw number 3435-23, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Leisure and Lifestyle Advisory Committee. Bylaw number 3437-23, being a bylaw to designate a part of the plan of provision not to be alleged to cancel the purpose of subsection 15, section 3 of the plan.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And Councilor Osmer, please.
Move myself, second by Council Wong, that the following bylaw be taken as read a third time upon be passed, bylaw number 3435-23, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Leisure and Lifestyle Advisory Committee, and bylaw number 3437-23, being a bylaw to designate a part of the plan of subdivision not to be registered plan of subdivision for the purpose of subsection 53 of the plan.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And Councilor Chu.
For myself, second by Councilor Osmer, that bylaw number 3436-23 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the committee of the whole on October 2nd, 2023. We read a first, second, and third time. We finally be passed, signed, and sealed by the mayor.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And Council Roman, thing that regional council fights with the students to do the adjournment motion. Carried, go ahead, Council.
For myself and the council officer that whereas business was continuing has included at 7:07 p.m. and we resolved to adjourn the stand on of 4/23 to 7 p.m. for regular council.
All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. Yes.